What's up, my freedom-loving friend? What you're about to see is a short clip that I think you'll like. It's taken from my show, exclusive on Rumble, Lies You Can Trust, which you can watch every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. Now enjoy the clip. Hey, I wanted to show you something that I just showed you. This, I feel like it's speaking for me. New rule, if I order my food standing up, I am not tipping. Damn it, we need to have an insurrection over this. I would say fascist tipping industry. It's just gone too far. Let's just say you're at a normal restaurant, you're eating, they have what's called a wait staff. Great. They do their normal thing, and then, you know, you're paying, they bring their little Ghostbuster looking card reader to the table, put your card in, and then they hand it back to you, which means time, pony up for a tip. Do you want to tip 30%, first option, 25%, or do you want to be a cheap ass and tip 20? I don't like that. It's just a socialist mentality. Oh, well, you know, people deserve to be paid
Pick your hero
for
or
doing
villain. I'm not
a service.
judging.
I don't believe in tipping whatsoever.
You
I
don't
do
have
it
to be a
because I'm
witch
a
to find the
coward
magic
and I
in this
cave
world.
to social
But it
pressure,
does help.
and I'm not proud of that. I'm setting a bad example for my son. I'm setting a bad example for you. I'm hurting America because I tip. I tip 20%. And if it's a waiter who manipulates me through flattering conversation, I'll at times tip upward of 50%. Be a nice guy. I like that guy's vibe. He manipulated me because he knows the nicer he is to me, the more he's going to get. Work, I'll tip him 50%. Sometimes I'll do that. Not proud of it. I am a coward. I am acting like a communist. Now that's the
30
normal
seconds before you
scenario.
attack.
What about
Get
these
ready.
restaurants now where their customer service is you servicing yourself? It's not even go to a counter and give a human your order. It's no. Here's a little screen. Here's a screen. You enter your own order. Alright, I'll do that. And then, okay, for you servicing your
battle
own
starts in
meal,
5,
do you want to tip
4,
30%,
3,
25?
2,
Some don't even give you a 20% option.
All you need to
It's
do is
22.
capture the mission
Then
area.
I feel like
Got
a
it?
jerk when I select other and I go down to 10. When I'm giving my own order, I'll tip 10%. That is 10% too much. Again, I do it because I'm a coward. I don't have the balls to tip nothing. And I'm sorry. I'm just here being honest. This is a confession video. I need to run PR on this to cover my tracks because I'm just showing up as a traitor to capitalism in America. You're like, JP, I didn't know you were a socialist, communist, degenerate piece of blue-haired crap. I'm saying I am when it comes to tipping because I do it. Even when I tip the bare minimum of 10% because a human didn't take my order, I am everything that's wrong.
Capture the mission area.
I'll even tell you this. The worst case scenario, this was during COVID times. I don't know if this restaurant still does this, and I'll never find out because I'm not going back for good reason. A new restaurant opened up in downtown. It's supposed to be swanky, you know, boho chic decor. It looks more douchey than anything you'll ever find. It looks like idiots from LA moved to Tulum and they're like, we're going to give people a cultural Mexican experience. Why do you make it look like LA crap? Anyway, looks like people did that with this restaurant. I went, here's a screen, place your order. I'm already loving the customer service. Cool. Then you go find a table and sit there. Cool. Then when your order is ready, you're called to go pick up your order is what you do. Then when you're done eating, you're supposed to bus your tray, bus your dishes. And this is like it's not like fine dining, but it's like fairly, like, do you want a 2-egg omelet? Over 20 bucks. It's like that kind of place. After I place my order, it asks for a tip. I'm like, I might be a coward. I might be stupid. I might be a ginger, but I am not a tipper of any sort in this. You guys,
Keep going.
do you know why? They provided zero service. Well, they cooked your food. It's a restaurant. Do you know that? It's a restaurant. It's an exchange. Barely that. Not a restaurant with service. You know, I guess the only step they could have gone further to give them credit, they could have had me go back and cook my meal. I I'm surprised they require that. I don't know why they didn't. They're like, dude, we could actually cut more costs. We give them 0 service. Still ask for a tip with more money out of these idiots. All for it. But why stop there? Why not have them cook their own meal? In fact, why are we even ordering the produce and the meat? We buy it from the butcher. How about this, guys? Which do? You place your order. You're doing that, okay? And then once you place your order, you go back to the kitchen. Now, before you cook your order, I'll give you a map. About 9 stores in the downtown area where you'll be able to source the ingredients for what you order. And then you make it. Do a good job. You take pride. And then once you are done cooking, you can go out and take it to your table, and at this point you get to sit and enjoy a nice meal. It was done for you, by you. But you know, there's a reason why people eat out. It's because they want to do all the chores at home somewhere else, but pay a lot more money. We know that's why people like that. And they like to tip gratuity to themselves. Now that money then it goes to the people that provided nothing to be grateful for.
We'll get back to the video in just a second, but first I want to be real with you. Running my video channels and all my social media platforms can at times be exhausting. It's non-stop video production, incoming DMs, people wanting things from me. That's first world problem to have, and it can be exhausting. But I do have a secret weapon for energy and focus that powers me through my days. It's called Circulation Sweets. It's an amazing little gummy from my friends at Healthy Living. It's got a killer ingredient in it called S7, which can improve circulation by up to 230%, and it gives me a nice energy boost. Most drinks and formulas are just loaded with a bunch of sugar and caffeine and other crap that makes you feel worse. But not these guys. Circulation Sweets are made and sourced in Utah with no weird ingredients or fillers. They're non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and caffeine. I love to take a couple right before a big workout so I get an awesome pump and just have more energy, which I did yesterday. I'm still sore. It was a great workout. I also like to take a couple right in the middle of my workday after I've crushed a bunch of video production, and I still have a bunch more to go. I love taking them for the energy boost throughout the day, but they also improve heart health and circulation, and that kind of matters more. In other words, Circulation Sweets is an all-natural solution to get your mojo back, whether you need it for a workout, the office. So next time you feel like you need an app, but your to-do list is a mile long, try a couple of Circulation Sweets. Get yours by going to circulationsweets1.com. My Awakened viewers get an exclusive 15% off. Just make sure you use my link down below in the video description so you get your 15% off. That's circulationsweets1.com. See the link in the video description. Now back to the video.
Okay, now after you eat the meal that you served yourself, that you sourced the ingredients for, that you cooked yourself, that you placed your own order for, take your dirty dishes over to this tray. Guess what? You're not even going to have to wash them. We'll do that for you. You have to take them over there. Hey, Jerry, why don't we actually have them do their own dishes? Great idea. What's the downside? People are gonna either love it or they'll be too dumb to know. We're just greedy bastards at this point, providing a significantly subpar service. Long story short, I never ate at that restaurant again. I never will. I'm boycotting it because it is the most communist-minded place I've ever seen. You're probably like, JP, you're being really ambiguous here. I don't know where you're at on tipping. Okay, could you just quit sugarcoating it and tell us? It is so stupid. This is what the mission of my work for the past almost 11 years has been about. It's waking America up. That's why it's Awaken with JP. Waking America up to the scam, the deception of tipping. Here's how it works in Australia. Food has fallen to communist rule, but not the restaurant industry. In Australia, the price on the menu is the price you pay. Guess what? You pay more for your omelet. No, you pay the same amount for your omelet. but the price on the menu is more. Why is that? Because they pay their wait staff better, and they just charge you for it. You don't tip down there. No, essentially the money for tipping they just include in the price. It's transparent, and you pay more for it. Well, I like my $17 omelet in the U.S. than $21 omelets in Australia. No, you idiot, you're paying the same for your omelet. There's just deception involved. The price on the menu isn't what you pay. It's expected you pay 20% more, and they try to squeeze you for more than 20%. Communist Australia, that's the only thing they do right. Now here's what happens. We all know, we've seen the Yuri Bezmenov video. There's been communist subversion happening in the U.S. for decades. The spearhead of it is the tipping industry. It is based on deception. They get people false, it says $50. But, I'm gonna pay 70, right? Okay? That's just what we do. You're falling for a deception, you're playing into it, which is conditioning your mind to fall for other deception. Whereas if you look at a price and say, well, that's the price I'm gonna pay, well, what about the tip? I'm looking at the price on the menu. Are you guys doing deceptive things here? Well, no, it's just to remain a sovereign American, to we the people, to reclaim our freedom, our birthright. To have a transparent reality, we have to stop tipping. We have to change it. What we really need to do is get Bernie Sanders involved. If we can get him off his private jet for a minute, or find which of his 3 mansions he's in, get Bernie out because he's a man of the people. He hates rich people for sure. He might have a couple private jets. So we'll eventually find Bernie. Have it sit down. We know the rich, the oligarchs, Bernie, are ruining America with this tipping. Here's what we need to do, Bernie. We need to mandate that the price for food at a restaurant is what's advertised on the menu. Let's get tipping built into it. But we don't call it tipping. We actually call it higher wages for the wait staff. I think Bernie could push this through. He can barely stand up anymore, but I think he could push this one through. The guy's got a lot of power. That's what we need to do. As long as we, with open, sheep-like arms, accept tipping, the best way to do it is based on the performance of service. That's how it's. Well, the people have been trying to earn a living wage. Yeah, the restaurant is the problem. The industry is the problem. I feel for them. But starving them out, maybe a few of them, just after maybe hundreds of thousands that can become homeless before America wakes up and changes the system. That's how Bernie Sanders and myself are trying to fight the oligarchy. Specifically, I'm trying to fight the communist oligarchy. Bernie's trying to strengthen that and fight the capitalist oligarchy. Whatever. We've got some common enemies involved here. Let me know what you think about the tipping industry. And I want you to know everything I just said. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. Tipping is just communist subversion. It's entitlement. It's socialism. I don't
An exclusive look now into the cartel and their control, not just in Mexico, but right here on American soil. We captured the moment cartel traffickers confronted our News Nation team.
So gangs have taken territory at the U.S. border and are using it to conduct criminal operations inside America. And although President Trump has made it his mission to lock down the U.S. border like never before, the claiming of territory near a small town by criminals isn't something anyone expected. And now the U.S. military is responding in a way that some are saying goes a bit too far.
We just saw a group of what appears to be these scouters with masks on. They were waving to us. One of them even joked that he's with the FBI. Clearly, we have a camera right in front of us, so they're most likely trying to find the right opportunity right now to smuggle people across. And I'll tell you, if you ask Border Patrol agents out here, they'll probably tell you that these guys are in for a rude awakening.
Armed drones are among the most precise and lethal weapon systems in the American arsenal. And tonight, 6 U.S. officials briefed on the matter tell NBC News the Trump administration is considering using drone strikes against the Mexican cartels.
While we were on this ride-along, suspected cartel members, they began throwing rocks at us as soon as we pulled up near what Border Patrol says is a known smuggling location. This is a scout house.
President Trump is creating a border barrier that is more than just a wall. He has now authorized the military to take control of a 60-foot strip of federal land along the border. Now, migrants would be crossing into a military installation.
Look at this. Border crossings in a remote area of Texas are picking up now that smugglers are getting desperate. And what nobody's talking about is this is not the direction people thought things were going to go at the U.S. southern border. And it's not the direction things have been going. However, reality dictates that closing the formerly open U.S. border and stopping criminals who built a $13 billion per year smuggling business won't be easy, especially since they've had unrestricted access to our country for years, giving them time to embed themselves all over the place, including the town that just made the news as being a cartel hot zone. But before we get into exactly how they got their hands on this place and the surprising things they're using it for, it's important to understand that the U.S. has the tools to stop these criminals and shut them down. But using them is another story, because as we've seen recently, some judges and politicians have taken the side of the bad guys and are doing everything possible to prevent criminals from being sent to places like El Salvador's mega prison, which has made that country one of the safest places on earth and is one of the few places no criminal wants to wind up. Which brings us to the real reason this cartel hot zone exists and why, despite the U.S.'s best efforts, these bad guys find ways to keep operating. The war for border security is being fought on multiple fronts. You've got the actual front lines in towns and territory along it, plus you've got the war in the courts and on American television, where the general public is told members of gangs like MS-13 haven't actually done anything wrong and should be allowed to stay in America forever, even though they'll stop at nothing to illegally enter our country in increasingly bizarre ways like this.
It all started in a neighborhood about 5 blocks from the border. When police arrived, they caught these 2 men from Guatemala and Mexico.
Well, the black clothing turned out to be wetsuits. They also had these devices. I think I've only seen them in, like maybe the James Bond type movies.
Water propulsion devices.
So these 2 guys, they got into a river and used these water propulsion devices to quickly sneak into our country, bypassing Border Patrol who was looking for them. And although they were eventually caught, this reveals a level of dedication and sophistication to these criminal smuggling operations we've never seen before. And it sheds light on how these guys are taking over and maintaining their operations inside America. And as you're about to see, that's causing some parts of the border to not even feel like America anymore.
News Nation getting an exclusive tour of what Border Patrol calls cartel territory in Roma, Texas, a small town that sits right across the U.S.-Mexico border. We captured the moment cartel traffickers confronted our News Nation team inside a zone that's become the flashpoint of an evolving turf war as the American government fights to reclaim.
So these gang members, they came out of their little hideout and the news crew approached in a boat with Border Patrol and they got extremely confrontational. Look at this, you've got 5 or 6 men standing here, you've got a woman, you've got a kid swing set, you see cars, and they're essentially screaming at the news to get out of here. They're too close, making this gesture bizarre. And it just shows you how fearless these guys are. They're not wearing masks, they're not trying to hide at all, because they know that from where they're standing, Border Patrol can't do anything to stop them, which has a lot to do with why the U.S. military might start changing up their tactics at the border. Because as you're about to see, these criminals, they've figured out how to get as close to the border as they can without risking capture or deportation.
They're controlling what and where things cross every single day. And we were essentially in their way yesterday. While we were on this ride-along, suspected cartel members, they began throwing rocks at us as soon as we pulled up near what Border Patrol says is a known smuggling location. This is a scout house that has the writing CDG, or Cartel del Golfo, a.k.a. the Gulf Cartel.
So they've got their name written right on the side of one of these buildings. And right now, she's standing on U.S. soil. But look, right over here across the river, that's where this base is, and that's technically in Mexico. These guys are right there. Apparently, they use this little village as a way to hop across the river, commit crime, and then go right back, which makes them an occupying force, which conducts a series of small invasions in order to commit crime and run their enterprise. It's important these people not only get captured, but also get sent to a place where they can't escape from. Because not only is their facility very bizarre, these guys, they're not afraid to attack Border Patrol or a news crew.
It is something that we have seen in this area, and a rock is considered a deadly weapon. Everybody knows about the Gulf Cartel. That in itself lets you know the location that we're at, how we have to be a little more vigilant in those areas. Can be something, them trying to do, you know, a scare tactic on us, right? Something to show their presence, that they're there, and obviously they've come out of that house that has that lettering on it.
That's crazy. So Border Patrol says stuff like this happens to them all the time. These criminals, they're just laughing at them because they're safe over there on their side of the river, which is just a hop, skip, and not even a jump from U.S. territory. And look at this right here. We've got Roma, Texas, which is the city, and just look at the water. There's not a whole lot of space between Mexico and the U.S. This is very close, and look, you can even see how the water's not even that deep in some areas. And with criminals taking over these little villages on the river, it lets them operate in plain sight and figure out what they're gonna do. But now the question is, how on earth has this been allowed to happen? And how are these people living in this little house that they took over and wrote their name on, how are they not on a bus to a prison somewhere? And just how relentless are these guys in using this base to try and access America illegally?
And the reason that that CDG Scout House, we're showing you this live here, back on camera, is in kind of the perfect location, is because they're able to move humans very easily right there to that island, which is actually U.S. territory, but it's kind of an area that they cross the river, they'll hide out there until they know that the Border Patrol is gone. They have scouts everywhere that are watching. They send up drones, Nicole, to see when the area is clear.
That's absolutely ridiculous. It's right there. And everyone knows that they're using this as an area to commit crime. They essentially wait on that little patch of dirt until Border Patrol's not looking, and then they make a break for it. That's how they're still able to smuggle themselves or other people into the country for money. And it's got to be incredibly frustrating for Border Patrol and the military to know that these people are totally gaming the system. They're right across the water, and oh, you can't touch us, we can do whatever we want over here. And that ability to spy on Border Patrol and our troops and take action when they least expect it, that's why the U.S. might change how things happen at the border, even if Mexico doesn't like it.
And tonight, 6 U.S. officials briefed on the matter tell NBC News the Trump administration is considering using drone strikes against the Mexican cartels. The officials told us no final decisions have been made, and they said the administration is hoping for Mexico's cooperation.
Right, so these cartels, they're on their little border base, and they're setting up their own drones into the sky to harass Border Patrol and try to find exploits. And are we really supposed to believe that they're doing this without the knowledge or even some semblance of permission from the Mexican government? They're in Mexico already. They're not covered up, which is too bad. Everyone knows their existence in Mexico is a bad deal for not only law-abiding Americans, but also law-abiding Mexicans. Yet here these criminals are controlling the leaders of that country to an extent where they feel no need to cover up or try to hide themselves in public. They operate openly. And because of how well connected these criminals are and how they've got inroads into the political game in Mexico, critics say that's why the Mexican government hasn't put a stop to stuff like this.
The Mexican president responding to our reporting today. We've always said we do not agree. First, because we're not in agreement with any military intervention, she says, adding it would not solve anything. President Trump paved the way for military action when his government designated Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations and authorized surveillance flights by the CIA over Mexico.
What can you tell us?
So, of course, Mexico has to be against this. They're not going to let another country and their army or their air force just come into their territory and take out citizens of Mexico. Mexico, who the U.S. says are criminals. Plus, Mexico's president, apparently, she's not the biggest Trump supporter out there, which likely means cooperation isn't going to show up until one of two things happen. Either the U.S. takes sudden action and tells Mexico they had to in response to some cartel-related escalation at the border, or it happens because of tariffs and other types of economic pressure, put Mexico's leaders in a position where they lose more from allowing these criminals to operate than they're already losing from the horrible symbiotic relationship they've got with some of the worst gangs on the entire planet.
Drone strikes could target cartel leaders, their security forces, similar to how the U.S. used Reaper drones in the Middle East and South Asia. But many experts say U.S. military action without Mexico's consent would spark outrage in Mexico and cripple cooperation. They also question whether it would work.
So the idea that experts are questioning whether or not this would work, to me, makes it look like they don't want it to work. Because you know that the second there are drones flying over the U.S. border is the second people stop trying to mess with it. But the thing is, right now that's not happening, which is why you've got these thugs just across the water yelling at news cameras and throwing rocks at Border Patrol officers while standing on sovereign territory. But what makes this even more frustrating is that this disputed region where this hot zone exists shouldn't actually be disputed at all.
Yeah, so we know that the Texas Land Commissioner, Dawn Buckingham, she actually has isolated 2 different islands in this area. They're pretty big swaths of land, several acres that this land covers. Now, this is an area that, again, belongs to Texas and the U.S., that they are being referred to as a smuggler's paradise after Texas military alerted Dawn Buckingham, the land commissioner, that these islands were, quote, being used by cartels for smuggling operations.
So what you have here are these little uninhabited islands. They're sovereign U.S. territory, but nobody's there. There's no Border Patrol presence on them. They're just an empty patch of land, and these cartels, they're just coming across the water, getting there, and then making their way further into the country. And the reason their existence makes this a smuggler's paradise is because once you're on one of those islands, you're already in America. You've already succeeded in your goal of entering the country without permission. And from there, you can use a little boat or swim or use one of those bizarre propulsion devices to make your way further inland, where you might not see any Border Patrol.
It was an ominous feeling out there yesterday because you felt like you were being watched, and that is the reality. There's scout shacks out there. We want to show you that with surveillance points where cartel members are actually launching drones. It's a counter-surveillance tactic that Smallwood tells us is happening every single day, Nicole, so that they can have the tactical advantage. They're constantly out there watching Border Patrol.
So they had to clear out a similar island, which apparently used to be called Cartel Island. Look at this, they flattened the entire thing. Because if you don't do that, you just create a hiding place for criminals, and you give them a tactical advantage that puts Border Patrol and U.S. troops who are there in danger. And look at this, right here you can see one of these shacks which looks abandoned as a satellite. There's obviously something going on. They're spying on the border from right here, which is incredibly frightening. And it seems like we're just a few steps away from a real problem. Now, obviously, the U.S. doesn't want to start some sort of armed conflict with Mexico, even with a criminal group in Mexico. But that could happen in the near future if these gangs take things further than they already have. They're already putting Border Patrol in danger. They're already flying drones over U.S. territory. Things could change, and the U.S. military is building up right now to be ready in case something unfortunate like that happens.
President Trump's pressure on Mexico sparked tough new measures against the cartels, and several U.S. officials told us they believe the Trump administration may be able to secure Mexico's agreement to conduct limited military strikes. They also acknowledged that going it alone would be risky.
Us against the world!
So cooperation, of course, would be best. Now, from a military perspective, the U.S. doesn't have a lot of fear from Mexico, but you want to get along with your neighbors. And let's be honest, these criminals in Mexico, they're not a benefit to Mexican society. They don't help law-abiding Mexicans at all. They're sick of these gangs just like the rest of us. Perhaps even more so, since these cartels have been around for decades. But you've got to wonder how this cooperation's ever going to manifest itself, because right now you've got hostile U.S. politicians and judges sticking up for criminals and gang members, ordering them returned to America after they get deported. And this hostility inside America is going to encourage world leaders like the president of Mexico, who might not be Trump's biggest fans, to not cooperate. And that's just gonna put everybody in danger. When you defend criminals, you put the law-abiding at risk, and that's what's happening here. But what do you think about this cartel hot zone right across the water from the United States? Does Mexico know about this place? Are they finding out about it from the news for the first time like the rest of us? Should they do something? What should the U.S. do? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.
Together to victory! I'll patch you up.
Feeling stronger already. Us against the world!
Thank you to Morgan for watching this video.
The Trump administration is pulling the approval for congestion pricing, saying it is and everyone should have access to the city, not just the elite.
So,
Maximum punch!
changes because the city's money-generating taxation cameras will soon be shut off. But it's recently come out that even with these cameras charging cars over $1 billion a year, all that money wasn't going to be enough for the subway improvements promised by our leaders. But even though progressives are losing their minds over this, it might actually be a good thing for the subway, just not in the way most people think.
New Yorkers encounter this every day going to work and school. Mentally ill people terrorizing others on the train, clearly in need of help. Recently, there have been high-profile cases of psychosis turning into violence.
President Donald Trump tweeted,
Your powers are mine!
I'm here to say, New York has been later undertaking over 250 years.
The MTA tonight asking for $68 billion to fund its capital plan for subway improvements. And the head of the agency is turning to lawmakers in Albany for help.
We need to make sure that the structures, the tunnels, the elevated structures don't fall down, fall apart. We need to make sure that the power systems, which blew up recently a couple times in Brooklyn and in Columbus Circle, are not left to rot.
Many feel safe riding the subways of New York City, and we have urged your governor to instead of pulling people to try to sway them onto the transit system, to instead make this city's transit system safe. We'll roll out substantial additional improvements like transit planning to be even more responsive to the terrifying acts of random violence because people don't feel safe in our subways.
We'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
So New York's hated driving taxes will soon be a thing of the past, marking another promise kept by President Trump. And although this will deprive New York of money that was supposed to fix the subway, nobody running this place wants to admit it was never going to do any such thing, which anyone with half a brain could probably figure out just by using it, as the subway in its current form already costs over $20 billion a year to operate, while it doubles at the site of an ongoing humanitarian homelessness crisis where many neglected New Yorkers live on a full-time basis. Because for some reason our leaders can't figure out how to use the billions they already get to fix this place while giving people somewhere else to stay. And look around, there are red flags everywhere that rewarding this place with more money is a terrible idea. Because every cent that comes down here gets wasted on progressive initiatives like spiked barriers that claim to stop people from jumping the turnstiles but don't, or on gates that are so accessible they make fare evasion effortless and are theoretically supposed to convince more law-abiding riders to use the subway because of how easy it is to get inside, where for just $3 you can put your life at risk while you take the train to work. Speaking of being at risk, NYPD studies show that the most likely person to assault or rob you while you're riding the subway is the person who didn't pay to ride it in the first place. Which brings us to the real reason President Trump's removal of New York's taxation cameras is a good thing. Not only did they disproportionately tax the poor, but now our leaders have to use the billions they've already got to make some changes around here, instead of stealing more of our money just to waste it. Something they've never had to do before, which is shocking because even though they constantly complain about how the infrastructure down here is hundreds of years old, the budget to run this place is $6 billion higher today than it was over 15 years ago. And still nothing down here has been fixed or improved like they promise. Every year they demand more of our money. And as you're about to see, while President Trump is keeping his promises, the subway we have today is the result of promises that were made and broken on purpose.
You've certainly come a long way since the update created last.
This This right here is pretty alarming, and it could be a security risk. You've got what looks like a whole bunch of equipment back here behind a door which is not even locked. It is just flapping in the breeze. And the entire subway system is run in a manner that makes it look like nobody cares what happens down here. And we wonder why it doesn't run properly. We wonder why people are stealing subway trains and taking them on joyrides. It's because this entire place is the combination of decades of promises that were made and never kept after the people of New York paid for them. They actually arrested 2 of the teenagers that stole a train the other week. But even though our leaders are always scheming and coming up with new plans to get more of our money to waste, the latest way they were going to do it was so bad and so unfair that the president decided to get involved and cancel it, which might actually be the best thing to happen to the subway.
As a New Yorker, understands how damaging this program is to our city's economy. This was an unfair toll, particularly considering the residents I represent. This was a double toll that they were facing to go into the city in which...
So this plan was supposed to generate $1 billion a year by taxing cars to then pay for improvements down here in the subway. Improvements to infrastructure, improvements to train reliability, and other things we've been promised time and time again but have yet to see down here. Yet none of this money was going to go into keeping riders safe. When you look at the improvements we've already got, like escalators that don't seem to work, it's hard to see how giving this place any more would accomplish anything. And although somehow the money we spend on fixing the subway never seems to make it down here, this time things were supposed to be different. Specifically, 80% of the money from these billion-dollar cameras was supposed to make its way into the subway and change our lives. And, you know, 80%, that's way better than the 0% that makes it down here today. But it gets even better because according to the MTA, who runs the subway, taxing cars was also supposed to pay for updated signals that would improve service reliability, reduce delays, and lead to service increases in the future. Which is pretty strange because that's something New Yorkers have heard before. In fact, you can see the MTA's webpage has been promising these since way back in 2009 when they first started installing them. We've been promised signal improvements and accessibility improvements for years, and it's never happened. And the city has so little respect for its residents that it's not even trying to keep it a secret.
People know that the system is great.
Your powers are mine!
Disappear!
They see the beautiful
As graceful and lethal as always, T'Challa.
It's just historic. What our writers don't realize, though, is that in our system, it's not just the architecture that's a
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
the infrastructure.
So this promo was filmed back in 2015, and as you can see, our leaders have been using the age of this place to shake us down for more money for a long time. They always talk about how old it is and how we finally need to do something about it, but then when people finally pay for it, it never happens. And the never-ending promise of more infrastructure and less delays and a better subway is turned into a never-ending grift, which our leaders keep coming back to every time their piggy bank is empty, constantly telling us how this place is old and falling apart, while reminding us that public transit investments are an investment in the futures of every single New Yorker.
However, the money set to be raised is not expected to be enough to fully fund the MTA's improvements and expansions. Lieber maintains the money the MTA is asking for is part of a good investment.
I think it's time to retire the talking points about how the MTA doesn't manage money. This is a new MTA, and we're all about it.
Whoa, did we just hear of more promises of a better subway tomorrow if we would only pay for it today? Unbelievable. There's no way anybody should be expected to believe that, because all around us are the signs of a city agency that doesn't know what to do with the money it's already got. And what's crazy is while our leaders keep complaining about how old this is and how it needs new signals, they keep spending all of their money on stuff like this LCD panel right here that tell us how late the trains are. It's almost like we've got this existential problem, which is how terrible the service is, and our leaders always promise to fix it and then use the money that was supposed to fix it on other things. Which means that the New York City subway is a lot like your broke friend who keeps saying that he just needs a few extra bucks this one last time to get his life together, to clean himself up, to turn it all around, and then you give him the money, and what does he do with it? He doesn't get his life together or fix anything. And the next time you see him, he comes back and he says, "Hey man, you got an extra couple bucks? I could really use it. It's the last time, I promise." And the worst thing about all this is that our friend, the subway is continuing to spiral downwards out of control because they're losing more money every single year on the one thing that is supposed to keep this place going, which would be fare evasion. It costs them $800 million a year, just $200 million less than the billion-dollar congestion pricing plan that the president just canceled. And by taxing cars, they were going to offset their losses from people who ride the trains for free. Revealing a darker side to this whole plan and giving us another reason to all be glad that it's gone. Most people don't know this, but if you're seriously hurt, that accident could be worth millions of dollars. And if you're injured in any way, you need to know how to protect your right. Which is why you might want to know about today's video sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm, who doesn't just settle for lowball offers. In fact, over the last few months, they've seen record judgments, like a $12 million judgment in the state of Florida that was 34 times higher than whatever insurance was offering. Add to that $26 million judgments and $6.8 million judgments in Philly and New York, and it should be pretty clear that Morgan & Morgan is not your typical law firm because they win a lot. Plus, it takes just minutes to see if you've got a case, and you can do it all from your phone. Step 1, submit your claim online. Step 2, Morgan & Morgan's experts get to work investigating. And step number 3, Morgan & Morgan only gets paid if you win, which is what you want. And they can do this because they've got over 100 nationwide offices and over 1,000 local lawyers who are ready to fight to get you the best results possible. You can start your claim with Morgan & Morgan by following this link right here, which will also be in the description of this video. And remember, there's no fee unless they win. Once again, thank you to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video.
Us against the world!
So the worst thing about the New York City subway is that the problems are glaringly obvious, and the solutions to those problems that you're about to see are also glaringly obvious. But in order to understand why they will never be implemented, you've got to realize that the people running this place never have to do anything. They can just keep asking for more money, and they get it every single time. Which is why our leaders have no plans to collect the money this place needs from the very people using it.
And check out this video that we got earlier today. In the span of about 10 minutes, with our big clunky cameras looking on, one person after the next jumped or crawled underneath the arm of the turnstile. They were completely undeterred.
So this is the first way that you start fixing the subways. You get the people who ride it to pay for it. And we've actually got a way to do that right here, but because it works, we won't give you. And that would be these rotating gates. You could install these everywhere. They're decades old, and they'd fix your fare evasion problems immediately. But not only are our leaders uninterested in doing what we already know works, they've got problems. Like, you see this gap right here? Look at this. This fits a human hand. I've seen people reach through this and open this entry gate right here to get in for free without paying or having a stranger open it up for them. And once you realize that the last thing on anyone's mind is collecting fares from people who ride the subway, every other problem this place has will start to make sense as well, especially the crime problem we've got going on down here, which one study says are overwhelmingly connected to people not paying to use the train. What a surprise! Who would have ever imagined that the criminal underworld, if you let it commit minor crime, will then go on to commit more serious crimes? And here we are trying to convince people that the subway is always a good investment and that it should be respected and that it's necessary. Yet our leaders don't treat it that way at all. They don't think it's a good investment. They don't even care if it works properly, which is explained by the non-stop delays and the fact that we've never gotten the new signals we keep being told are just around the corner. And since our city has no intention of passing laws that would jail fare evaders, people are just gonna keep coming down here and using the trains for free, revealing that the money needed to run this place is never gonna come from the customer base, something that would tank any privately run business. But that reveals another problem. As much as the subway is a dangerous nightmare of a contraption that nobody wants to spend any time in, the visible problems this place has and the fact that it's always running out of money aren't necessarily its fault. Instead, the problems down here can directly be traced back to an unwillingness on behalf of our city officials to lock up criminals. And sadly, as you're about to realize, just as getting the subway to run properly isn't on anyone's agenda, neither is locking up the folks who are ruining it for everybody.
Those crescent-shaped turnstiles over there.
Your powers are mine!
6 inches of height. Just the turnstile. deter you from jumping over? No. Not at all. I mean, I don't see that as being a deterrent.
So this is embarrassing. Here we are wondering why our subway system has a crime problem and wondering why it has a money problem. Both of these are connected. But instead of using the tools we already have to fix both of these issues, we're spending money to make them both worse. Just look at these spikes right here. These things were expensive to install, and they're part of a pilot program that should help our city figure out if they're a way to stop fare evasion. Yet not only do they not work to stop people who might want to jump over the turnstile or crawl under it, the only way you can justify installing something like this would be if it's not supposed to do the thing you're saying it does. Stuff like this isn't put here to get people to pay to ride the train. It was put here so that somebody could get paid to put it in, revealing that the New York City subway isn't just used as a way to extract money from New Yorkers, it's also used as a way to enrich whatever favored contractor was chosen to install these things. And this is honestly disgusting. We're told that the subway is very important, that our city relies on it, and that investing in it is investing in New York, yet all the money that comes from it is taken for nefarious purposes that don't benefit the people or the subway itself. But as you're about to see, the foolish decision-making behind things like these turnstile contraptions is also the reason we have the congestion cameras in the first place. Because not only do they exist to solve problems that are...
So once again, my husband called me off to the underworld to continue venturing through the world of The Last of Us. And I was so proud of him because he finally hopped on board and spent some extra time trying to figure out how we can watch the super speed. Because trust me, you need it.
They'll be coming in 30 seconds. Stay strong. Now, a disappearing act.
So boring.
He sees this show as a comedy, and that's for the times when you're not asleep during it. But anyways, we continue the kickoff with episode 5. Whoops, wrong show. So once again, we have a woman boss with a very angry face meeting with another woman leader who proceeds to tell the woman boss an entire story that could have been covered in a scene.
From securing the mission area.
I think that would have been executed.
The dialogue between these two women is so freaking flat that it made me start falling asleep. So Oscar, the Grouch woman, tells the Square Jaw woman that there is a shooting near the borderline between them and the Scar, and whatever treaty the two groups had is now broken. Our boy Isaac's probably dealing with that, but whatever. So Grouchy woman thinks that they're gonna need all the soldiers they can get because they might end up being in a war again, so it's a bit odd that Square Jaw woman killed her people. And this is where we get the beginning of the exposition. See, up until this point, they could have probably left us in. We don't care anything about these characters, but we could have at least introduced them this way and had this woman looking at the boss, Grouchy woman, and then there's a flashback as to what happened. But nope, this is exactly what we get. This is essentially what we get, right? And this is what I'm talking about with the sheer laziness of the show.
My fate isn't sealed yet.
What is up with this woman? What is so far up her butt crack? Like, clearly the Square Jaw woman is upset. Unless they just hired her like yesterday. What would be the reason that she would sacrifice her own men? Especially when you get the reveal later on. It makes less sense. I don't know what's up the freaking boss woman's ass and why she's being so freaking vicious for no reason. If she really is the leader of this whole outpost, which I guess she is, she's a real shitty one. Being a piece of shit vicious person or being cold and not knowing how to speak to your subordinates does not make you a leader. All good leaders know how to be firm when necessary, assertive when necessary, and gentle when necessary. For example, Boyd, even though he starts losing his marbles near the end of the show from, he's a perfect example of this. At least as much as he tries to be. And so is Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. This person just lost all her men, and you're bumping up the attitude like someone just put you in a managerial position at Walmart for a freaking day, and you're taking this opportunity to go ham on the other employees because you now suddenly think that you're better than them because of your freaking 15 minutes of fame.
We cleared the ground floor.
I'm doing this my way. Armed and dangerous. Bring on the God of Thunder. Your powers are mine.
And I'll let you see the subtitles so you can slow it down and read it yourself. Because every single thing she just said could have been showcased in a freaking scene in the opening of the episode. And they chose not to do that. They keep doing that over and over again in season 2, and I don't know why. Are these people this broke that they can't showcase what's on the script? So instead of a storyboard and the script being played out by the actors in the scenes that they're meant for, we have actors just sitting here and talking out the scene or the actions that occur in the scene. It's such a freaking boring waste of space. It's such a waste of potential. Why do you want to sit here hearing people talk? The element of The Last of Us is supposed to be thrilling and horrific, and yet we have people's faces. Also, what this woman is talking about could have been a very interesting reveal later, but whatever. Again, would have been nice to see this, but if you're sitting here wondering who the frick is Leon, why is this important, it doesn't matter, because they refuse to show it when necessary.
Reborn from the chaos. That is not that vehicle!
He was struggling to breathe.
Again, all of this could have been in a freaking scene. Would have loved to see this man named Leon featured in the intro of this episode or have his own freaking episode. Mind you, this could have been its own episode. And let me just say it again for the people in the back. Even though I actually liked that one episode in season 1, they gave a whole damn feature-length special to a gay couple romancing each other and growing freaking strawberries. Which, cool, fine, sweet, but you're telling me that this, a full-blown, action-packed, tension-filled backstory that could have slapped, that instead of showing it, we get a freaking ghost story being told by 2 human freaking breaks. I feel nothing for this woman. These 2 could have fallen into a pit mid-sentence and feel more emotion for the freaking sinkhole or the ground that swallowed them up. It's offensively stupid. And then people have the nerve to get upset that we're calling this out and acting shocked that the show's not doing well. It's not even a show, because they're not fucking showing.
Feeling stronger already.
Dear God.
You see what I'm saying? Like, can you even imagine how badass that would have been? It's literally the only direction this could have gone. Spores in the damn air, which, by the way, is how apparently it originally was in the actual Last of Us game. But no, instead of giving us the jaw-dropping, oh shit moment that would have been perfect to display on screen, they dumped it into this half-dead dialogue exchange between 2 crusty-faced NPCs that we really don't give a damn about.
Your powers are mine!
That's 3!
So she said we sealed them in, it wasn't in the vents because of such and such and blah blah blah. And I love how they slap some swelling, suspenseful music behind the scene, like that's supposed to make us feel something.
This is what dying feels like.
Like we're too dumb to notice that nothing's actually happening. Are we supposed to be afraid? You know what would have made us afraid? You know what would have actually pulled some emotion out of us? Showing us. Letting us see people like choking on the air, gasping for breath. Letting us watch Leon be a straight-up badass instead of just hearing that he was. Are there tariffs on letting men be badasses on the show now or something? Like, you hardly ever see it unless they're being evil or unless they freaking die horribly later. Like, he was her best, the woman said. I would have loved to see that. What a waste of damn time. Then they start yapping and the grouchy woman says, "We owe you a debt." Sure she does. And then at the door, she says, "I'm sorry about your son." Christ. Oh, wow. Big reveal. Leon was her son. And they made that dialogue before they opened up the intro of the episode. But again, I cannot stress this enough, and I keep doing it because that's how much it irks me. All of what they explained could have been in a freaking scene. Again, we get these crusty characters, and of course, Dina is the one that feels like the main character because she's figuring everything out. Meanwhile, we have this freaking oaf bumbling in, validating her, telling her, you know, you're brilliant, you're this, you're that. And it just feels really weird. Like, this is the person we're supposed to believe is on a journey for revenge against a man she supposedly loves. The only person who's taking this remotely seriously is Dina. Who is really Abby here? Who is supposed to be the main character? And we didn't even get any relationship foundation between Dina and Joel other than she told Ellie, "I love him too," and she asked Joel